The FX3, this is my new camera going forward on my channel. Still using the XH2S, so there'll be A and B camera. I've been doing some testing between the two and they perfectly match 90% thereabouts. For me, that's kind of more than enough. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I was looking for. I was looking at the Blackmagic Ursa cameras. I was looking at the Zcam cameras as well. There was also the FX6, which is slightly a little bit more pricey, but I think for me overall, I kind of wanted a camera that would allow me to be compact still, because I've always shot with smaller cameras. I have shot on like the C series cameras, which are big and heavy. They do last, you know, quite a bit of time. They look more professional, but I think when I looked at everything and I was like really kind of deciding how I shoot, how I prefer to shoot, what's my kind of style. You know, I rely on autofocus a lot, and I know a lot of filmmakers out there will be like, oh yeah, but you're not professional if you use autofocus. Listen, for me, a camera and a lens is just a tool, nothing more. When you start getting pride about like, oh, you know, why are you using autofocus when you're shooting a film and stuff like that? If it works, it works. For me, I just want equipment that gets me the job done. Like, I really don't care about whether or not like it makes me look bad or whatever. Like, I just need something that will allow me to achieve the results that I want to get. And when I'm shooting films and stuff, I need reliable autofocus. I need a camera that can last decently with the battery. And I need it to be small, you know? Like, I don't want big clunky cameras because they're difficult to set up. They take time to set up. And if you want to do like run and gun shooting outside, you know, could you imagine like trying to carry a big camera, like lugging it all the way around and stuff like that? It kind of draws too much attention to yourself, you know? And I really don't think that's the kind of thing that I want to do. Like with this setup here, I can remove the top handle and I can have a really small DSLR looking, or mirrorless camera, DSLR for us old school folk who still used mirrors back in the day. Back in my day, we had flappy mirrors. We used to have flaps. So now that I'm flapless, yeah, so as I said, like I really enjoy the mirrorless style shooting. I really think now looking at certain films like The Creator, for example, obviously everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, he wanted the FX3 for The Creator, a little bit. But also Civil War was shot on the Ronin 4D. We know that consumer cameras are getting higher in level in video quality. And I think we've reached a point now where like, you know, these cameras are way more than usable for feature films. Like I shot my first feature film on the XH2S and, you know, for me, the image quality was really great. And I know a lot of people might be asking, well, if it was so great, then why did you decide to go from the XH2S to the FX3? And I think there's a couple of reasons why I'm going to dive into that. Number one, I love the XH2S, but the only problem I have with it is it's too sharp. And in order for me to achieve this kind of feel, I can't describe it. When you have a cinema camera, and in general, with other cinema cameras, there seems to be like a cinematic image to them. They're not over sharpened. Like they're very detailed, but they're not over sharpened, so it doesn't appear as video-y. When I'm shooting, like I've done some test footage on the FX3, and honestly, like there's this, it's like a creamy cinematic, and I know it's not the right word, but like cadence to it. And it just, I feel like I've got an organic feel to it, you know? And I think that's the key thing is like, does it feel like cinematically organic? And when I'm using this, I get that feeling. When I'm using the XH2S, I have to do a bit of work to it. I need to add some like ProMist filters to it and stuff. Like I haven't used any ProMist filters on the FX3 yet, and I'm already really liking what I'm seeing. Now there can be stuff about delusional kind of like new camera syndrome where it's like everything looks great to you and stuff like that. But I really kind of put them side by side. I've tried to like match the colors, which I have done. I've had examples where both of the images look exactly the same. Like I can actually match the FX3 to the XH2S color-wise very closely, and they look great. But then when I start to like see the image itself, I start to understand that the XH2S is slightly over sharpened. Obviously, because it's got a 6K sensor, it's gonna look sharper. But when you even shoot in 4K, it's still sharp. And I've got the sharpening turned all the way down, and I'm trying to compare it to this. And I haven't even started yet to reduce the sharpness on this camera. And this has still got like a much nicer, softer vibe for me in a narrative cinematic sense. So that's some of the reasons. Also, importing your own LUTs, the ability to create LUTs, import them into your camera, and then see what you're doing on set is really great. I know that you can use like a Ninja V and import LUTs that way, but I really hate shooting with big setups. Like honestly, I'm so bored of it now. I'm tired of rigging up a cage, tired of putting on a monitor, setting up cables, V-locks and everything like that. I just want to pick up a camera like and just shoot, you know? So like, if I can just hold this, and that's what I love as well, because this is like very well thought out, mostly. The handles here, you can connect it with these screws, like the body's got screws on it. And this is what I've been really like hoping Fujifilm would do, was release a style body like this, because I think that's what we're in the world now where we need these kind of cameras. We need something that's small, ready to go. If it had built-in indies, that would be great, but it doesn't. You know, that's the kind of shooter that I am now. That's the kind of shooter that I see a lot of people preferring to just have like, you know, smaller cameras on shoots and stuff, whether it's for documentaries, narrative, corporate work. And, you know, I think the big cameras, you know, the big boys, I think they're really kind of getting pushed more into just studio. Like, I think you set it down on a tripod, you have a studio shot, and yes, you can use that camera, use it to the maximum capabilities, and you're gonna get an amazing, great image. But when you're outside and you're shooting and stuff, especially for like low budget indies and stuff like that, we just don't want big cameras. We don't want to lug around with it. You know, no one's impressed that you have a big camera. What we want to see is faster setups, you know, allowing us to get more time for shooting. You know, having to wait 10 minutes for someone to set up the camera, whereas we can just have a get up and go camera ready to shoot. I don't care about like APS-C or full frame, but the ability to shoot in low light was another thing. So this can shoot in 12,800 ISO, and I've tested it compared to the 800 base ISO, and it feels like they're almost exactly the same. Like there's a tiny bit more noise in the 12,001, but it's probably as good as the Fuji at 1,200 ISO, you know, the base ISO for F-Log2. So that really kind of like made me realize that this camera is really, really versatile. Yes, there are some downsides. So the CF Express Type A cards are expensive, but I did find a cheap option which works perfectly well. So that's the Per Gear lenses. You can go on eBay and you can find some like really cheap ones, or on Amazon. I'll leave a link down below. And that kind of like solves most of your problems. You can also put SD cards in there, so that's great. So will the XH2S be sold? Will I be like getting rid of it and stuff like that? Absolutely not. I love the XH2S. I think for photography, it's fun. I love the colors on it. I think the video, like it's a fun camera to use. The functionality of the camera, like I think is great. The menus are easy to use. We're getting more and more additional features for the camera, which is great. You know, we've got now the red recording frame, we've got subject tracking. Like they're very slowly improving the camera to a place of where it needs to be. But as I said, like there's just some pro features in the FX3 that allow me to be more creative and allow me to be more of a cinematic filmmaker. There's just more features in the FX3 that allow me to get the job done faster and more professionally. So, you know, and this is a purpose-built cinema camera in a mirrorless style body. And I just love it. I just think like it's the perfect weight, it's the perfect size. You can run and gun with it. And if you want photos, you can do photos as well. Not that I would really do that, but it's got it, you know? And I just think that right now where I'm at, where I'm like kind of going to the next level with my short films, wanting to get more professional corporate work and stuff, like this is the setup that I think will help me to achieve that, you know? And on a gimbal, like if I pop this on a gimbal and I've got the autofocus on, I feel confident that I'm gonna get like 99% of my shots in focus, because when I've done some tests and tracking and stuff, it's so sticky. Like you get a little square box in your eyes, and then when you turn your head, it like tracks your head, you know? So it knows, okay, this person's turning around, let me stay on the back of their heads. Whereas with the Fuji system, it's hit and miss. Sometimes it will track the head, sometimes it will miss and go onto a wall or something like that. So it's not perfect, you know? And I think Fujifilm are getting there. I think they're like 2 or 3 years away from really kind of understanding how they need to get their autofocus to work at a high level. And so one of the reasons as well why I wanted to get the FX3 was in part of the creator. So having watched a lot of the behind the scenes and them talking about like why they chose the FX3 and pairing it with the Atmos Ninja and shooting in ProRes RAW, really kind of like opened my eyes up to the image quality that you can get out of this camera. Because although the internal codecs are amazing, like I've done so many tests with them and they're great, once you add in ProRes RAW to the mix, you actually like get such deeper, rich colors. Now, when I used the ProRes RAW on the XH2S, I could never really get it to work properly. And by that, what I mean is I could never really get the image to look great. There was always just something weird. I don't know, like it muted, the dynamic range felt like I was getting less dynamic range. And when I was doing my research into it, it's like ProRes RAW was built for beta sensors and the FujiFilm's X-Trans, so they're having to do some sort of conversion before it gets into the ProRes. So I don't really know the whole schematics of it, you know. I'm not that kind of like technologically advanced in what's going on there. But what I do know is that when I've tried to use ProRes RAW on the XH2S, I didn't get pleasing results and I didn't want to use it. But when I've shot some test samples on the FX3, really kind of I was just blown away by like the actual depth that you can get into colors, the image quality, the dynamic range. I just felt like I was unlocking like a whole new level of camera. But yeah, so I thought I would just give you an overview of why my next camera was the FX3. You'll be seeing a lot more mixed content. There will be still Fujifilm content. As I said, I love the brand and I love the cameras as well. All right, this camera is getting really heavy in my hand now. I don't want to hold it any longer. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. No, I don't even want to say like. Did I say like and subscribe in my last one?
If you like this video, hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.
Need to say any more?